From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Africa has become a growing market for high technology products. It may soon become a base for many more high-tech companies as well. Experts predict growing competition in Africa as technology companies and others attempt to meet the needs of young and middle-class populations. DHL calls itself the logistics company for the world. Logistics is the process of planning complex activities involving people and resources. DHL provides transportation by train, road, sea, and air. The company sees Africa as a place where its business can expand. But for that to happen, more international companies will need to invest and set up operations there. Sumesh Rahavendra is with DHL. He says there is a lot of evidence of growing operations by multinational companies in Africa. They include SAP, IBM, and Hisense, a Chinese state-owned company. Sumesh Rahavendra is the company's head of marketing for sub-Saharan Africa. He says the area offers many possibilities for growth. He points out that many people who never used a desktop computer are now using tablets and smartphones. He describes the continent's 1 billion people as a largely untouched market for many kinds of products. DHL has been operating in Africa for more than 35 years. Sumesh Rahavendra predicts that as more and more companies set up operations in Africa, DHL's business will increase. DHL says Africa is now the world's second largest mobile technology market by connections after Asia. In addition, it is the fastest growing mobile communications market in the world. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. A new study has found evidence of aggressive behavior in children who drink 4 or more servings of soft drinks every day. Information for the study came from the mothers of 3,000 5-year-olds. Researchers asked the women to keep a record of how many servings of soft drinks their children drank over a 2-month period. The women also were asked to complete a checklist of their children's behavior. The researchers found that 43% of the boys and girls drank at least 1 daily serving of soda. 4% of the youngsters had 4 or more sodas to drink every day. Shakira Sulia is with Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health in New York City. She worked on the study with researchers from the University of Vermont and Harvard University School of Public Health. She says they found that children who drank the most soda were more than 2 times as likely as those who drank no soda to show signs of aggression. The aggressive behaviors included destroying possessions belonging to others, taking part in fights, and physically attacking people. Dr. Salia says the researchers identified the link after they considered socio-demographic factors, like the child's age and sex. They also considered other possible influences, such as whether the boys and girls were eating sweets or given fruit drinks on a normal day. In addition, the researchers examined parenting styles and social conditions at home. Dr. Salia says it is not clear why young children who drink a lot of soda have behavior problems. But she says the ingredient caffeine could cause children to be more aggressive. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Living among trees, flowers, and other plants can fill your life with beauty. And if you are a woman, it might also help you live longer. Researchers found that women who live in homes surrounded by plants have lower death rates than women who live in areas with less greenery. The Harvard University's School of Public Health reported the finding. Peter James is an expert there on epidemiology, or disease spread. He and his team looked at information from one of the largest and oldest investigations of women's health, the Nurses' Health Study, which began 40 years ago. It now has information on nearly 200,000 women. For the new study, the Harvard team looked at death rate records of more than 100,000 women between the years 2000 and 2008. Then they compared the women who lived among the most vegetation and plants to those who lived among the least green space. They found in that 8-year period, the women who lived among a lot of greenery had a 12% lower death rate than the other women. Researchers said women in greener areas spent more time with others, exercised more, and were exposed to less air pollution. For VOA Learning English, this is the last health report from Learning English TV. But we are not going away. We will continue to bring you videos to help you learn American English. Go to learningenglish.voanews.com to find new materials and to look for past Learning English TV reports. I'm Carla Babb. Thank you for watching and learning with VOA Learning English.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. A carbon footprint is the amount of carbon dioxide pollution that we produce as a result of activities. Some people try to reduce their carbon footprint because they are concerned about climate change. Now, researchers have a way for people to measure how much nitrogen pollution they produce. Their nitrogen footprint. All plants and animals need nitrogen. Nitrogen is a major element in the proteins in our bodies. The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen. In the early 20th century, scientists learned how to take nitrogen out of the air and make it into a form that plants could use. University of Virginia professor Jim Galloway calls synthetic nitrogen fertilizer a wonderful invention because it increased food production. But he says many parts of the world use too much nitrogen fertilizer, and that harms the environment. He says the effects include air pollution, acid rain, loss of biodiversity, coastal dead zones, and global warming. So Professor Galloway and other researchers have developed a nitrogen footprint calculator. This web-based tool asks people about the foods they eat and questions like how much they fly and drive and how big a house they live in. Researchers say the average American produces 42 kilograms of nitrogen pollution a year. Some of that comes from fossil fuels like oil and coal, but more than 70% involves food. University of Virginia researcher Allison Leach says Americans eat almost twice as much protein as the government recommends. She says eating only the recommended levels could reduce nitrogen footprints by almost half. Professor Galloway says animal protein plays a big part. He points to the example of cattle that are given feed grown with nitrogen fertilizer. For large animals like beef, a very large fraction of the nitrogen that enters the cow's mouth is excreted out the back end, he says. Last year, a study supported by American beef producers found that their industry's environmental impact has decreased over the past 30 years. Jude Capper at Washington State University reported that by producing more beef from fewer animals, the industry cut its carbon footprint by 18%. The nitrogen calculator is currently designed for people in the United States, Germany, and the Netherlands. Another online calculator will be designed for India. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti. For more ways to learn American English and stay informed every day, go to voaspecialenglish.com from your computer or mobile device.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Agriculture Report in Special English. Agriculture produces a lot of the greenhouse gases that scientists link to rising temperatures and climate change. Agriculture can also be hurt by the effects of climate change. A new report says high temperatures and unpredictable weather are disrupting agriculture in many parts of the world. The report is called Innovations in Sustainable Agriculture, Supporting Climate-Friendly Food Production. The World Watch Institute in Washington published it. The report suggests ways that the agriculture industry could reduce its effects on the environment. Danielle Nierenberg was one of the report's authors. She says industrial agriculture uses a lot of fossil fuels. She says the chemicals used in fertilizers, pesticides, and transportation depend on fossil fuels. Danielle Nierenberg says animal production has an especially big effect on the environment. She notes that the amount of meat being eaten in countries like Brazil, China, and India is growing. As a result, more industrial animal facilities or factory farms are being built in the developing world. Those big farms need fossil fuels to operate. They also require long-distance transportation. She said all those things can contribute to climate change. The report recommends 6 land and water use practices that it says are sustainable. These include growing trees on farmland to reduce soil erosion and planting cover crops to make soil less affected by drought, heat, and pests. Other recommended practices include recycling wastewater in cities, drip irrigation, and replacing chemical with natural fertilizer. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman. From VOA Learning English, this is the Help Report. A top health expert warns that the world needs to deal with what he calls the first Ebola epidemic the world has known. Tom Frieden, director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, spoke to reporters at the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. He warned that the Ebola outbreak in West Africa could spread widely. He said a huge global effort is needed to contain the disease. Dr. Frieden just returned from a visit to the most affected countries, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia. He said Ebola cases continue to increase quickly, even though healthcare workers are working extremely hard against the spread. News reports say the number of cases is more than 5,000. Dr. Frieden warned that there is a window of opportunity to stop Ebola, but he added that window is closing. The CDC chief said the Ebola virus is spreading in 2 ways, from patients to caregivers and through unsafe treatment of the dead. Dr. Frieden warned that each day's delay in dealing with the Ebola spread makes it more difficult to stop. The CDC director said resources, technical experts, and a worldwide organized and unified plan are needed. He said Ebola is not only an African problem, but a world problem. U.S. health officials have announced an agreement with a California-based drug maker, MAP Biopharmaceuticals. The deal calls for the company to speed development of the experimental Ebola medicine ZMapp. ZMapp has not been tested on humans, but 2 American medical missionaries who had Ebola were treated with the drug and recovered. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. American and European scientists have new equipment to watch the world's oceans. The Jason 3 satellite launched in January. It is designed to record rising sea levels. Scientists say satellite information recorded over the last 20 years shows sea levels rising fast. They say the fast rising seas are an indicator of climate change. Josh Willis is the lead project scientist for the operation at NASA. He says the Jason 3 satellite collects information using radar. He explains that satellite records have been kept for only about 25 years, but measurements of how the oceans have been changing go back thousands of years. He says the past 2,000 years have been stable in terms of sea level and the Earth's temperature. But in the past 100 years, sea levels have risen quickly. He said that is because of the warming of Earth. All material, including water, expands when heated. The Jason 3 satellite measures how high the surface of the sea is. This permits scientists to estimate how much extra heat is stored in the ocean. Eric Luliet is with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. He says sea levels are an expression of climate change for two reasons. He says excess heat is causing the ocean to expand. And he says the planet's warming causes glacial ice to melt into the oceans and increase sea levels. Luliet says Jason 3 information will help scientists monitor the effects of rising sea levels. He says it will also help in predicting and preparing for big storms. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report. Movies are all about appearances. Movie fans know that the action hero in the film Superman does not really fly. But in the movie Superman Returns, another visual trick is used. The man they see flying is not a real person. He is what is called a virtual actor. The first step in creating a digital actor is to have a real person stand in a room called a light stage. A computer records the shape of the actor's face. Computer scientist Paul DeBevick is with the Institute for Creative Technologies at the University of Southern California. He says special lighting and 7 different cameras are used to create the digital image. Mr. DeBevick is part of a team working to create computerized images of people, objects, and environments that look and act real. The light stage permits actors to be turned into digital versions of themselves. Similar technology could appear soon. Computer experts at the Institute are developing a 3-dimension video teleconferencing system. They hope to send a 3D video image of a person to a meeting room. The image would be able to work with the people in the room who would see it without special eyeglasses. Paul DeBevick says 3D meetings would make it seem like all of the attendees are in the room together. How far are we from 3D teleconferencing? Paul DeBevick says businesses will begin to use 3D video teleconferencing in the next 5 years. The Institute is using its light stage and interactive 3D technology to record video testimonies of Holocaust survivors for the Shoah Foundation, also at USC. The 3D images could be shown in classrooms and museums. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Science Report. An international team of scientists and business leaders have announced plans for a modern space exploration program. It is called Breakthrough Starshot. The team includes British physicist Stephen Hawking and billionaires Yuri Milner from Russia and Mark Zuckerberg of the United States. The goal is to reach Alpha Centauri. It is the nearest star system to ours. Alpha Centauri is 4.37 light years from Earth, or about 40 trillion kilometers. It would take about 30,000 years for the fastest existing spacecraft to reach the star system. But Breakthrough Starshot imagines a new kind of vehicle to travel the distance in just 20 years. They call it a star chip. It would be very small, about the size of a computer chip. Strong lasers on Earth would power it through space. The star chip would cost under $1,000 to build. It would carry cameras, power supply, and communication equipment. The star chip would also have a light sail, just a few atoms thick, to help move the chip forward. Together, the chip and the light sail are called nanocraft. The Starshot team envisions the launch of a larger spaceship carrying thousands of nanocraft to release in space. Freeman Dyson of the Princeton Institute for Advanced Study is among other scientists linked to the project. He suspects the star chips could collect a lot of interesting information before reaching Alpha Centauri. He says that they would not be traveling in empty space. Dyson adds that there are thousands of objects between us and the closest star system. For VOA Learning English, I'm Ann Ball.